Virgin is going to need the support of its shareholders to be able to put more money into the airline to fund expansion. Qantas is going to need to do the same thing as well. So there will be a battle for, more passengers, and that will involve competition and probably lower airfares.
Hi Ian, were Virgin Australia's shares priced to fly?
I think so, Kirsten. I mean, you wouldn't want them to sink, that's for sure, on the debut. And I mean, there was a lot at stake here for the stock exchange as well as for Virgin itself, because there's been precious little in the way of new floats coming through to the ASX. And also, you might think about private equity firms trying to sell things off. Everybody remembers the Myer float, which was a total dud, and they still talk about it now, 15 years down the track. So they did really want to get a decent kind of float away to deliver some profits to everybody who remains a shareholder.
On share prices, let's have a listen now to what the CEO, Dave Emerson, had to tell you.
So you were pretty happy with the listing price? Is that what you kind of calibrated?
So far, so good. Yeah. I think that, honestly, I didn't have an expectation on how it was going to trade. And I think my job, I've been hired to deliver the results over the long term.
Given most of the IPO proceeds will go to that private investment firm Bain, the post-listing performance is going to be key for Virgin's growth prospects going forward.
Oh, absolutely. And, it is quite an important point to make that the money is flowing through to Bain's, not through to Virgin. So Virgin is going to have to fund its upgrade of its fleet and so forth, or any new planes that it has to get on board through earnings and through its own efforts, really, not because of shareholders tipping in more cash to do so. But having said that, Qantas is probably facing a bigger uphill battle in that regard, because under Alan Joyce, Qantas's fleet ended up being one of the oldest in the world for its peers, and Vanessa Hudson faces a much tougher battle there. Qantas's debt burden as a proportion of its earnings is much higher than Virgin's is at the moment. So the difference between Qantas and Virgin, though, Qantas is much bigger, a great in terms of scale and scope, and in terms of earnings as well. So it does have that advantage of scale on its side.
Qantas and its low-cost airline Jetstar have seen off a number of other airlines over the years. How is Virgin's strategy placed to ensure it remains competitive this time round? Well,
there's been a lot of work that's been done to Virgin. It doesn't really even partly resemble what it was back before the pandemic and the collapse. Back then it was an international airline. It was going to a lot of different regional routes in Australia. Now it really concentrates only on domestic, and really on that golden triangle of Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne. In terms of international flights, well, it's basically outsourced that to Qatar, and that's where it sees its future, I think. And it's a very tightly run business, and so it will put up a pretty decent competitive bid against Qantas when it comes to it. And look, it's all happened at precisely the right time. I mean, you no longer have Bonza in there, you no longer have Rex. So both airlines actually have a little bit of room to breathe and probably get out of the difficulties that have faced the Australian airline industry.
Does that mean the flying public can expect that there might be a little bit more competition on those really popular capital city routes?
I couldn't imagine Qantas allowing Virgin to simply float, have a successful float and see the share price continue to rise. There'll be competition at some stage, because, and when we're talking about competition here, there's competition in two spheres. I mean, there's the competition for consumers, where you've got people, airlines basically vying to get basically bums on seats. But that then translates into competition for capital. And Virgin is going to need the support of its shareholders to be able to put more money into the airline to fund expansion. Qantas is going to need to do the same thing as well. So there will be a battle for, more passengers, and that will involve competition and probably lower airfares. And you might recall too that Qantas recently tied up or finished up with Jetstar Asia, brought all of those planes back to the domestic market here.
Okay, Ian Verrender, thank you.
Thanks, Kirsten.